You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at Bedford's Camera today. They've graciously taken care of me again and again and again and again. Christian and the team set up this awesome, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever, this awesome setup. It's them, it's not me. So go follow Bedford's Camera and buy cool stuff from down here. My guest today is a good friend. It's been a while. She has her own podcast, which I'm sure we'll get into, but Sabah Khan is on the podcast.
Hi, guys.
I'm excited. This is good. It's been a while.
I'm very excited, very nervous. This is my first feature, which is crazy. I think that's why I'm nervous, because I always have people on our podcast, and I'm fully prepared, but I have no idea what to expect.
No, it's fine. I think the first time I actually met you, I probably freaked you out because I'd known Nick, and we were like walking through Walmart at the start of COVID.
I think so.
And you were like, for those listening, when Walmart started with COVID, they put lines on the aisles, so you could only walk down certain aisles, and I just walked like straight towards you, and Nick wasn't looking, and Nick's like, oh, Mike, what's up? And you're like, who's this?
I was like, this guy's
guy?
walking very fast towards us. What is happening?
But yeah, obviously Nick, we met through Nick, your boyfriend, who does Drone Boys and a bunch of other cool stuff. Those people listening and watching probably have seen some of the pictures I posted, and did a crazy trip around the States this year with Hunter. But for everyone listening, I guess, who are you, what do you do, and why do you live in Oklahoma?
What a question. Okay,
so many things.
I guess I'll just start from the beginning. I was born in Pakistan, and I moved to America when I was 4. We moved to Virginia, and then shortly after we came to Oklahoma. Yeah. And my family's just kind of, so my family consists of my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. My brother lives in Ireland with his wife and kids, and my sister lives in New York. Yeah. And they're just living the dream. And then me and my parents live in Oklahoma. And so I've been in Oklahoma since I was in the 4th grade. Yeah. And, so I graduated I went to OU, and then I graduated from UCO with a, I don't even remember my degree. Public relations, essentially. Yeah, I've never used my degree once. Public relations. Yeah.
I guess you can't use it. A little bit.
Yeah. I mean, most of what I feel like I've learned has been self-taught or taught by people around me, which is really cool. I feel like a lot of the lessons that I've learned and a lot of the career paths that I've gone has been surprisingly nothing from college, but that's a whole nother tangent that I could go on. So I graduated, and then what did I do after that? Oh, I worked at Apple for 5 years. That was pretty cool.
That's a big deal.
Worked at the Apple store, met some amazing people, a lot of amazing creatives, just some really awesome people. Yeah. And then after I left Apple, I started FRIENDLiTECH, which was a little company it was just a little tech company that I had started. I still kind of do stuff with it, nothing crazy, but did that for a little bit. And then shortly after that, I worked for an interior designer, which was that was a very challenging part of my life. It was really cool, but definitely something I'd never been in before, and it took me by a whirlwind. I left there shortly after that and kind of went on a 6-month hiatus where I just was trying to figure it out and didn't really know what I want. And then I went to New Zealand with my best friend to visit my best friend's sister, and it was just like a life-changing experience. It was just, I guess I hadn't done life like that before, and I'd not been that far from home before. We were gone for 3 weeks. It was 2 weeks in New Zealand, 1 week in Australia. And it was like such a life-changing trip.
So
and
cool.
It just put things into perspective, like, I'm so minuscule in comparison to how big this world is. Like, I'm just grateful to be here, just having that gratitude. And so anyways, came back to the States, felt brand new. 2 months after that, I left for Turkey and Italy with my parents and my sister. And that was the first family trip we'd ever gone on. So that was really cool. And then that was, of course, another exhilarating experience, because how little am I compared to the world. But after that, I got back, and then literally while I was in, I remember this like yesterday, I was sitting on the doorstep or the windowsill in Italy, and my now bosses Megan called me and she was like, hey, we just wanted to extend this offer to you. And so then that was my foot into the cannabis industry, which is what I do now. I'm a manager at a cannabis industry or a dispensary.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
There's so much to talk about, and I'm glad you did that, because there's a few things I forgot, which now we're going to talk about, which is great. But so why did family move here from Pakistan when you were 4?
So my dad...
And I guess why specifically Oklahoma?
Well, so my dad was in the hotel management industry.
Okay.
And when I was actually born, he was in Italy. And so he came back. We were there for 4 years. And if you know anything about the Middle East, they aren't very women friendly. And so my dad just wanted
still very old school.
Yeah. And so my dad wanted us to be able to come to America and have literally live the American dream. And he wanted us girls to have more of an opportunity and be able to go to school equally, and, you know, just all the things that you want as a immigrant for your kids when you come to America. But yeah, so that's what brought us to Virginia at first. And then my dad had gotten into a really bad car accident and it was life-threatening. And then I feel like it was like a couple years we were in Virginia before we moved to Oklahoma, and then it was another job that brought him here, but then he actually ended up retiring shortly after because he just couldn't do it. His body was just way too weak, and so we've just stayed in Oklahoma ever since.
So you grew up predominantly in Oklahoma.
In Edmond.
Set your roots in Edmond.
Yep.
Which must have been like, and I know we share this, being like the immigrant culture and understanding how blessed we are and how awesome the opportunities are here, especially now that you've traveled more, that you understand it. Like this place is just, you know, I said this the other day, regardless of who is in power and whatever the government does, this place is still one of the best countries in the world.
Oh my gosh,
because of the opportunity. So you grew up in Edmond and you basically have an Oklahoma upbringing. Edmond changes a ton since you've been there, and you go to UCO.
Yes. Right? So I actually started off at OU, and if you know me, you know that anytime I step foot into Norman, it gives me really bad anxiety, which is so weird. But so growing up in Edmond, I honestly used to hate living in Edmond. I was like, I cannot wait, because my sister was always in New York since she was 18. My sister is exactly 10 years older than me, 10 years and some months. Yeah. And so I was 8, she was 18, she left for New York. So for me, it's like, oh my gosh, my sister is like she still is the coolest. She's the coolest person ever. She does the cool stuff. Yeah. But so I always knew I wanted to move to a coast, and that was my thing. But honestly, it didn't really take until I really got into the cannabis industry for me to love my state. Okay. Because there's just so much community here, and you see it. And I've always loved Oklahoma, and I knew I would always come back here if I ever did move away. But after really getting into the industry, seeing the community, seeing the people, and just how together everyone is, it's like, this is home. I'm never leaving Oklahoma. I can always go fly away, and like, even if I'm gone for a month or two, but this will always be home base. Oh yeah. Oklahoma's dope. I love it.
It's a special place, and it's hard to explain that to people who haven't traveled, right? Like if you've never been out of the country, never been out of state, or just haven't left your town, which sadly some Oklahomans don't have that luxury, or they haven't. They just don't like to go anywhere. They don't realize that how good it is here and how nice people are, especially when you go to New York and people are not opening doors for you.
Oh my gosh, not at all. And when I say thank you, people look at me crazy. I mean, even my sister though, she's always been like, you need to move out of Oklahoma. You have so much more potential. Like there's so much more out there. And I'm like, I know there is. I'm fully aware of that. But just there's something about Oklahoma. Like if once you're here and you've been grounded here and you go see other stuff and you come back, there's just, I think of Oklahoma, and I might be naive to this, but as a little bubble. Yeah. It's a lot worse than a lot of other places, and I'm grateful to be with the people that I'm surrounded with and the community that we have here and the support and love that we have here. It's awesome. I love Oklahoma.
It's good. So you go to OU and then you go to UCO to do, you said what was it?
Public relations
stuff. Are you working at Apple while you're in school?
Yes. So I worked at Apple for 5 years, the whole time I was in school. And it was working at Apple really changed me. Okay. In the coolest way. So if you knew me prior to working at Apple, I was super shy in my bubble, didn't really do anything. I mean, not that I do anything bad now, but I was just like a very straight edge kid. Yeah, very reserved. Wasn't very outgoing, nothing like that. I wanted to be, but I just wasn't. Yeah. And then working at Apple, they train you in such a way, and you have to be able to adapt and mold, and you have to be able to take people's. Am I allowed to cuss on here?
I'm allowed
to take. Yeah, like you have to take people's but also like you have to have that empathy and compassion. And it helped me learn a lot of traits and values that I've still kept till this day, which is really cool because you never, your first big job, you never really...
Right.
I mean, you remember it, but it's always like, how much do you really take in? Exactly.
Right? Like, I want to make some money, and it's a cool opportunity because I work at Apple.
Exactly. I mean, it was retail, and retail is not glamorous by any means, but working at Apple was one of the coolest experiences in the world, and I'm so grateful. And like I said, I met some of the coolest people, and now those same people that I worked side by side are doing like cooler things than I am, and it's so just awesome to see.
That's
and
awesome.
Everything started at Apple, and so I mean, Apple is a big part of who I am and how I became, just with the culture and the people and just everything about that job. And even like customers that came in, I like have long-term relationships with them, and some of them ended up being my clients when I started my business, which is cool.
That's awesome. Were you into tech growing up then?
Kind of, yeah. I still remember my brother getting me my first Dell, and I would always be on that thing.
Yeah.
Like, I would always be trying to teach myself how to like hack into people's emails, like weird stuff. But like, again, I was
You were definitely into tech then, yeah.
I was super reserved, like didn't really go hang out with friends. I didn't really start hanging out with people till like probably the 5th or 6th grade.
Okay.
And like really got out of my shell and started like having friends over and going to do things. But other than that, if people didn't invite me, I would never actively go seek friends because I didn't want to seem needy, I guess.
Okay.
You know, it was weird kid things. But even since I was a kid, I remember my mom saying you would never go play with other little kids until you were invited to go play.
Yeah.
Which is so weird.
Is that just because of the culture you kind of, I don't know,
No,
like upbringing from mom and dad, or what? Or was that just you?
It's just, I just
were your
was
sisters
so reserved. And I can still be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
If like, I'm comfortable with silence. And so when like I meet new people, and I'm not a big small talker, I hate small talk. So when I meet new people, it's like, I'm comfortable with that silence. So when they're not, it's like, okay, well, I'm not really good at small talk, so I don't really know what to talk to you about.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's probably why you and Nick go so well together.
Oh, it's perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like there's times where he can like be super outgoing and
all
friendly.
the time.
And there's times
Literally
where
when we're in public, I'm like,
but sometimes he shuts
cool,
down.
you got
right?
this. Yeah.
And sometimes you're just like, I'm going to text you and I don't hear from you for 5 days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which for people watching and listening,
if you know,
Nick Brown is notorious for not texting you back for 5 days.
Then you know, yeah. We just say it's nothing personal. Just, you know, it just is what it is.
Yeah, the first time I was like, why? He's really hard to get hold of. And then you're like, no, it's just the way he is.
Yeah,
it's totally
exactly.
fine. Appreciate you, Nick, if you're watching and listening. So you're at Apple, you're learning all this stuff, and like they're basically unlocking you to becoming more outgoing. And then you graduate and think, do I even want to use this degree? Like,
yeah, so I graduated, and then there was a huge, at the time, Apple had something called one-to-one training, which was you paid $99 for a year, and you essentially got unlimited training classes, and you could go up there. You could learn, like, if you were working on projects, you could learn how to do those. They would help you. There was creatives there to do that. Yeah. So that was a big thing. And then the year before I left, Apple stopped doing that. And so then they just did free workshops to the public, which those were harder because it's not one-on-one training.
Right.
And with when you paid for the one-to-one program, you could do like workshop type classes, but you could also do like individual one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so that was a big change especially for the older crowd, which is that was my target market.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I just observed, and I knew. So after you work at Apple for 5 years, you get a plaque. Okay. Which is really cool. And then 10 years, you get something. So every 5 years, you get something. And I knew I wanted to stay at Apple for my 5 years because, I mean, I'm a Apple fangirl. I'll admit it. And I had to have it. Like, that was my goal, and I knew it. And so this was year 4.5. And I was like, okay, like, I know I have to stay here for another 6 months. I knew that I was about to, you know, graduation was just around the corner. And and so I was in the midst of all of that. I was scheming. Yeah. And then I started FRIENDLiTECH. I was kind of doing stuff in the background because, of course, it was conflict of interest.
Of course, but
it wasn't anything big. Yeah, it wasn't anything big. I was just observing and seeing and listening to what customers were saying and the feedback that they had in regards to not having the one-to-one program, et cetera. So then I had started FRIENDLiTECH shortly after I left Apple. I still remember my clap out. So when you leave Apple, it's like a big thing. They make an announcement, and like all the customers in the store like stop, and they're like, hey, like so-and-so's leaving. They've been here for X amount of time, and we just like, you know, to have everyone join us in a clap out. And so I still remember my clap out.
They clapped you out of the store.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kind of exhilarating. But yeah, so I had that, and then started my journey of being an entrepreneur, which honestly was very hard.
Yeah.
And it was just very difficult. And I remember, like, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you know, like you're barely making it by half the time. And so I did that for a little bit, and it was really good. And I had some awesome clients, but I just like would kind of dip in and out of it. Like my heart would be in it, but like not really. It's something I know I'm really good at, but I'm like, is this like really what I want to do? No, like it just was. So then that interior design job came up, and that was a really cool experience. It was probably some of the hardest work I've done because it was in a field that I'd never been in before, and I just kind of got thrown in.
Did that come through a client? Like, were they clients? Kind of,
yeah. Okay. So I actually met the lady I worked for. I met her husband at the Apple store. Okay. And like we hit it off super quick, and we became pretty close. And then so they hired me out for some tech work, and then one of the girls left, and I just ended up transitioning in. So it kind of worked out perfect. Yeah. So I did that for about 8 months. Okay. And then it just wasn't my thing. My anxiety was so high all the time because I was a project manager and like office manager too. And there was just so many moving parts to that. Sure. And you have to be a very detail oriented person, which I am in stuff that I love and my passions. But if it's not my passion, then it's like,
I don't really care.
It's just stress and anxiety all the time. And so I just wasn't mentally in a good place when I worked at that job just because of the, all the things. And I felt like I was a failure because I couldn't live up to my own standards, let alone my boss's standards. And, it just wasn't for me. So we went our separate ways and everything was cool. And then just started that was in probably July of 2018.
That was during, the people that you worked for were pretty famous for a TV show, right?
Yes. That was really cool.
Are we allowed to say?
Yeah,
Do they mind?
I'm just trying to be discreet, but no, it was really cool.
If you watched it, I can't remember what it was called, but it was on.
It was Sweet Home.
Sweet Home. There you go. And you made some TV debuts, right?
Yeah, that was really cool. That was definitely a bucket list check off. I always told myself when I was younger, I'm gonna make it on TV, like one way or another, and that was really cool to be able to like show that back to my kids and be like, yo, your mom was on TV.
I was actually on TV. Yeah, I was kind of a big deal.
But that was really cool, and I actually ended up doing some camera work for them too. So like it was dope to play both sides because I got to be on TV, but then I got to do the background stuff. Because when they were gone, like I got to do, I did all the time lapses, the GoPro stuff, and so I was their person in obviously here that went out and did everything. Yeah. So it was cool to play both sides of it, and I got to experience both sides. So I did that for a little bit. Yeah. And
was it chaos?
No. 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 Actually, honestly, the people that we worked with, they were some of the coolest people. Like I still follow a lot of them on Instagram. We still keep in touch, and they're on complete opposite coasts, but it's so cool that we got to meet through that experience. But that was a very random time. It's really cool to reflect on now.
You're right, because you throw it in there, like you have all this stuff, you're super into tech and you do all this, like you work at Apple, and then out of nowhere you're like, there's an interior designer job here, which also revolves around tech because you're doing GoPro and camera stuff. But still, it's such a random.
It's so random.
I'm sure you grew and learned so much during that time.
Oh my gosh, so much. Like, it was definitely one of the most challenging jobs I've ever worked. But it taught me so much in the 8 months that I was there. And then I got to be on TV, so that was really cool. It was just a nice little cherry on top. But it was awesome. The people, I still talk to my old boss all the time. She's really cool. We're still cool. And
she's a very good designer in her own right.
She's phenomenal.
She's very good.
Amazing. Yeah, she's amazing. She's killing it. And ever since the TV show, she's just like leveled up. And I'm like, how do you do that? Yeah. Because you were already so good. But so did that, and then kind of just went on from July, I want to say this was 2018. Yeah. From July to January, that was my birthday month, I was just kind of in not a spiral, but I just wasn't in a good headspace mentally because I didn't know. If you know me, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I feel like that might be the immigrant in me.
I would, and it's the uncertainty of not having a plan and not going somewhere. And I'm sure then parents, even though they don't mean it and they don't intend to be this way, they ask the questions that they want to ask, but in the wrong way. it's the you're right. It's totally the immigrant side of things.
Yeah.
And it's for people listening. The equivalent of it is basically having your gran or uncle ask you when you're having kids.
Literally.
Right? But it's about
or when are you getting married,
yeah,
or
why
weren't you a doctor or a lawyer?
Exactly.
Like, it's just all the things. But I just knew that was never for me. I was never a book learner. I feel like I barely made it through school without struggling because tests weren't my thing. Like, that's just not how I learn. And so a lot of the stuff that I did learn and all the traits I did acquire, it was through the people who were teaching me, because I got to be hands-on and physical with it. And so I got to feel what I was doing, and that muscle memory ingrained into me versus teachers just throwing tests at me and me not learning. Right. And so anyways, that however many months that is, I was just barely trying to make by job wise, and then
doing FRIENDLiTECH stuff.
Yeah, still doing FRIENDLiTECH stuff and doing just other little side hustles. And in the midst of all of this, one of my best friends, Brooklyn, had moved to New Zealand with a guy she had recently started dating. He was Scottish. So they moved to New Zealand, and her little sister Baylor, who is also one of my best friends, she was like, we should go to New Zealand. I was like, let's do it. I was like, why not? I have nothing tying me here.
Now.
Like, I need some sort of exhilarating experience. And so booked our tickets, worked my ass off for a couple months just to be able to afford this trip. And in January, we left for New Zealand, and we landed the night before my birthday, which was like the perfect time. And
did you technically go back? You go forward in time.
Forward, they're a whole day.
Right?
They're a whole day ahead, essentially.
Which is so weird when you come back. Because
so
when you come back, you literally land the day.
Yeah, you left. Yeah. And I got 2 birthdays, which was awesome, because I had a New Zealand birthday, and then I had an American birthday, which was really cool. But so did that, and so it was me, Neil, Brooklyn, and Baylor, and we didn't have a plan. We didn't have anything booked, and I think that's why it was so exhilarating, was because we went there. The only thing we had booked was an Airbnb for the couple nights we were going to be in Auckland for my birthday, and that was like it. We didn't even have because we knew we were going to go to the South Island too. We didn't even have those flights booked. Nothing was booked except for me and Baylor coming to New Zealand for 2 weeks, and then we were going to go to Australia, which that was already booked too. But so we get there, that Airbnb's booked, and so then we rent a car, which was the other only thing that was booked, and we drove up the coast, and as we're driving, we just decided what town we wanted to stay in, and I would hop on and literally book that day of, and it was awesome, because it was every day was an uncertainty, but we probably within one day of driving, we would hit 4 or 5 different beaches just driving from
beautiful.
It's unreal. It's magical. If I could live there, I would do it in a heartbeat.
And the good thing is it's not a big country.
No, not at all.
Right? And I haven't been there, but I have a friend who lives there, and I've seen enough videos and stuff like that to know that, actually I have 2 friends that live there. It's such a cool place.
It's unreal.
Do you go to any rugby games while you were there?
No, so I don't think rugby was happening.
No.
I don't know. I think we were going to try to, but it was just with all that we wanted to do.
Because it would have been their summertime, right?
Yeah,
maybe?
we went prime summer, because January's their prime summer. So we drove up the coast, and we went to Cape Reingo was the very tip, and it was unreal. Loved it. And then we drove back down, went to the airport, and this was probably 4 or 5 days that we did that in, and then we flew down to the other island, and we're in Queenstown for probably, I would say, 5 days, and then we flew up to Wellington, because Brooklyn and Neil, at the time, they were working for these people. We went to their town and ate at their restaurant, and we got to meet all of their people, which was so cool.
That's the best thing, is going to hang out with actual, you don't get the tourist vibe. You get the real New Zealand experience.
Yes, which was awesome. They'd been there for long enough to be able to, develop relationships and know what's good, and they'd seen the island enough. So it was really cool getting to meet their people and the relationships that they had developed. And now I still follow some of them on Instagram, which is cool just to keep up with, or literally we met 2 different people. I still remember this, yesterday, we were sitting on the beach in Queenstown, and I said the word y'all, because nowhere else in the world says y'all. I was like, y'all are crazy or something like that. And the girl to my left was like, excuse me, did you just say y'all? And I go, yeah. She goes, oh my gosh. She was like, I haven't heard that. So this girl, her name was Amy. She was in Texas. Yeah. She lived in Texas, and she came to New Zealand to do a solo trip because she was in a similar place like me, where she just needed to get out, and she was big into yoga, and so she just came on a whim by herself, was there for 3 or 4 months, and was just traveling the country alone. And as soon as I said y'all, it was like a piece of home for her. And so she came and hung out with us the whole time we were in Queenstown. And I mean, I still follow her. She lives in Oregon now.
That's
and
sick.
we still keep in touch, but it was just so random seeing
Such a
a piece,
small
like
world.
somebody like so close to my hometown in New Zealand. And now we're
literally
still
at the other end of the world.
It was awesome. But then shortly after we did all that, we went to Australia, and that
Uh-huh.
was kind of the tail end of our trip. We were tapped out of money. We were exhausted from all the travels. Me and Bailey were just barely making it by. Melbourne, I will say, and maybe it's because we didn't get to go branch out into Australia because we didn't have enough time, enough money, but it was nothing like New Zealand.
Yeah, and as a country, it's
Nothing.
massive, isn't it? There's
And
nothing
the
in the
people,
middle.
they're just so pretty
Yeah.
that they know they're so pretty. Like, literally some of the most beautiful people I've ever seen in my life. But they don't even look at you twice because they don't have to because they're so
Because
pretty.
they're
And I'm
walking
like, okay.
models. Yeah.
Literally. And I'm like, okay, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But that was really awesome. That was a nice little cap to our trip. And then, we came back to America.
Yeah.
And then 2 months later, I jet setted again. So 2019 was a good year for me to start off my cannabis industry journey because I got a lot of like clarity and just a lot of things that I needed, and then I dove right in, and here I am now.
So you come back then, you come back for a few months, and then you do the whole family trip for the first time.
Yeah, so I had never gone on a trip with my parents in my whole life, except for when we came to America.
Which that's an immigrant thing too, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't really do like
you don't
family
do
trips.
big-
We don't do like, it's just that stuff's not a thing. I
Yeah.
feel like that's definitely more a Western thing.
Yeah.
But so my sister booked us a trip, and we got to go to Italy and Turkey. And it was cool to be in Rome because, like I said before, my dad lived in Rome when I was born. And a lot of the things that he was pointing out, like the road that was in front of the Colosseum used to never be there. And so his last time in Italy was in the 90s.
Okay.
Right when I was born. And then he flew back shortly after that. And so he hadn't been back since. So obviously all the development and stuff was new to him.
Yeah. But also it was great to see him come back and be like, and kind of be your tour guide, I guess.
Yeah.
And hear all these stories from your dad.
Yeah. And so when we were in the Colosseum, he was telling me all these stories, and it was just really cool to be there with my dad. It was a lot of nostalgia.
Yeah.
And so my dad's actually 78 and I'm 28. And so there's a 50-year difference between us. So I'm the youngest by a lot. And so it's just cool to see. It was cool to do that because I feel like that would, like, we probably won't get to do that again, you know?
Of course, yeah.
And so
it's
it
a
was
huge
just
deal.
really cool to be in my dad's element with him and learning from him. And even when we went to the Vatican, like that was awesome. And it was just really cool to do that with my parents. It was a once in a lifetime experience for sure.
Italy's beautiful, but it's also crazy at the same time. Like,
it's kind of grungy.
Yeah, they
it's
drive like Muppets.
Yeah, and
they love fast cars, but they also will drive their slow car as fast as they can.
Yes, it was beautiful. There was a lot of cobblestone, and I did not know that cobblestone would hurt your feet so much. But holy freaking cow!
Yeah, you don't want to be walking in flip flops on cobblestone.
I did not pack the right shoes, and by the end of the day, I was wrecked. I was so wrecked. But yeah, Italy was awesome. It was really cool to be there also and soak in just all the history and like walking through the Vatican and being like just
Hundreds
looking
of
around
years
and being
old,
like
thousands of years old.
that and just somebody did this, like somebody was talented enough to do this. And art like that isn't really a thing these days, you know. And now it's more just people have put more like, I feel like, life, culture, music, but back then it was just history. That's all they had
history
to play
and
off
art,
of.
and that's it.
History and art. And so I feel like it was really cool being there.
Yeah, and back to what you said earlier, like traveling and getting a bigger world view and realizing like how kind of small we are and the lives that we live in, like the little communities that we have, and just how big the world is out there.
It's crazy.
Like,
it's huge.
I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like having that appreciation for it, and then, you know, like total reset. What was Turkey like? Do you go to northern Turkey or southern Turkey?
So we went to Istanbul.
Okay.
Yeah, and so with my parents, since they are so old and have health problems, we had to keep all of our trips very minimal in movement, which kind of sucked because, of course, I'm so young that I'm like, I want to go explore everything, but we couldn't do that, which is okay because the trip was about being with my family, not so much like exploring, but... Yeah, Turkey was beautiful. We stayed in Istanbul. Our hotel was really cool. The places we ate were amazing.
Yeah.
Turkish food is so good. It's just like, it's similar to Mediterranean food, but it's so simple and so flavorful at the same time. A lot of like charcoal chicken. So good. Like kebabs, right up my alley. But it was really cool. It was beautiful. The architecture there, it was a lot different. So a lot of the mosques were stunning. The people were so nice. The animals, there were so many stray dogs there. But so what's cool about Turkey is that the country takes care of the strays.
Yeah.
So the strays are vaccinated. Like they're good. They're good. They're healthy, and they're just taken care of. They just wander and live their best life. They all have tags on them so that they know they're vaccinated and they're like healthy dogs. But they literally just live their best lives. I saw like, I don't even know. I saw Dalmatians. I saw German Shepherds. I saw Golden Retrievers. Like some of the most beautiful dogs just wandering, living their best life. And all the shop owners would feed them. So they were always taken care of, which how cool is that a country does that? I had no idea that they did that till I was there. And I was like, what? So freaking cool.
Yeah, because like because everybody feeds them. They're not just like tied to one spot.
No.
It's like when you feed a cat, you're like, oh, he's going to come back.
Yeah,
you know?
they literally everywhere. They were everywhere. I could show you pictures. It was so cool. And they would just be sitting like on these beautiful big hills just looking over, and you would just see one random dog's head little peek, and it was so cute. I would definitely go back to Turkey. It's awesome.
So what you said earlier, you're in Italy, you get this phone call, hey, would you like to come and work with us and have this opportunity and come. But that's when I guess Oklahoma's laws are starting to like drop,
this was,
and cannabis is coming from the coast to Oklahoma?
Yeah, so this was April 2019, and if I'm correct, it had just been legalized. The bill had just been passed in 2018 of December. And that's when all the stuff started like popping up. Maybe a little bit before that, but things started popping up very fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd gotten a call and I was like, hey, can I just think on this for a day? And she was like, well, we need to know soon, so I'll call you back tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So I remember talking to my sister about it. And this was one night her and I went out on our own and just were doing our thing because we needed a break from our parents. And I was like, hey, you know, I got this job and I got this offer and the pay's really good. And, you know, what do you think? It's in the cannabis industry. And I love my sister. She's awesome. And the story comes to a good ending, not ending, but like it comes to a good thing. But at the time,
she's 10 years older than you. She's an older head.
and she's always been in corporate, like she's corporate minded, and that's just the industry she's been in. So my sister is a line producer at HBO, which is really freaking cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
My sister's a badass.
Yeah.
But she has always worked for corporate. She's always like literally lived that immigrant woman life where she's worked her ass off to get where she needs to be, because
everything she has,
especially in the entertainment industry, because all you see is predominantly white males, right? And so my sister's done so many cool things, but of course in her mind she wants her sister, you know, to do like similar things that she's doing, you know, flourish. And we just flourish very different ways. And I have such a different mindset than my siblings. I'm like the black sheep of my family.
I was
100%.
about to say,
and I am so
like,
okay with that.
Yeah.
I am so okay with that.
The first thing that's come into my mind is like the typical younger sibling is just like she's just running free spirit, doing what she wants.
100% I'm the free spirit of the family. But yeah, so she was like, no, because if you ever want to get a corporate job, like what will people say? You're working at a dispensary, it doesn't look good, la la la. And I was like, okay, you know, I took it with salt of grain. Of course it didn't make me happy, but I was like, you know what? I respect what you're saying. Yeah. We just are in very different wavelengths, and it's okay that you don't understand me yet, but you will. Yeah. And so I took the job. Yeah. Didn't tell anybody in my family. Yeah. Didn't tell my mom, didn't tell my dad and my siblings. Nobody knew. And my mom didn't know for 2 months until I finally was like, okay, well, like I'm working like a dog. Like, what am I supposed to say, you know? Yeah. And so I told my mom. And she was like, okay, what's the pay? You know, whatever. And so she wasn't happy about it, but she was like, okay, like, you know, you have a job, like, and this is your second salary job. Like, let's just see. Are you going to tell your dad? No. Okay. So mom lied to dad for a little bit for me. And then it was about another month. So 3 months in, 2 months in, I told my mom, 3 months in, I told my dad. My siblings have no idea. Yeah. I told my dad. He was actually pretty cool about it.
How did you tell your dad? Like, how did that conversation go?
I think my mom kind of broke the ice for me, but at that point, I think it was just like, okay, she hasn't had a job for a little bit. Like, she's kind of been in this weird place. Like, maybe this will be good for her type thing. And here's the thing is, for them and for a lot of immigrant parents, it's just the idea of getting high, but it's not that at all. You can still use cannabis without having any psychoactive properties or feel anything. And so, but then it's a lack of knowledge, right? And so I was like, okay, they can say what they want, but I will come back and I will combat this, right? And so all this time, where I work is really cool because we're so big on education, and we got drilled so much education that I don't know everything, but I know a lot to be able to talk to somebody who's completely against it,
right?
You know, and have
turn that kind of bad like view that everyone who doesn't understand it would initially have.
Exactly.
Especially the older generation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially immigrants.
Right.
They're impossible sometimes. But anyway, so my dad was cool. And then a couple months later, my siblings found out. And I don't think that they were thrilled about it. I think the whole idea was, what will people think? Which is that's
an immigrant thing too.
Yeah. And really a lot of Asian families do that. What will people think? And I hate that question because I'm not here for people. I'm living for me.
Yeah.
And people need to worry about their own kids, you know, but it's a very immigrant thing. But so as all this is happening, you know, I am also suffering. So anxiety had kind of kicked in the summer before that when I was going through my own hard time before I went to New Zealand. And so that's when I really started feeling my anxiety more. I'd never gotten tested for it because what was I going to do? Go to the doctor. They're going to say, here's some Xanax. And
it makes
I don't
it
want
worse.
that. And I don't want...
Or you get addicted to it.
Exactly. And I don't like...
worse.
That's just not my way. I mean, I will barely take Advil migraine unless like I'm on my last straw and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Because I will always want a natural way. I don't like putting stuff in my body. And that's just me. Everyone, you know, everyone's different. But anyway, so every time I went home, talked to my mom, I would always educate her a little bit. This is what this did for me. This is how I'm doing this, you know, and so as that happened, I slowly started opening up about my consumption. And, you know, I use it for my migraines and I use it for my anxiety, because anxiety doesn't knock on the door and say, hey, I'm here. She just shows up, you know? And so,
and sometimes you don't even notice what it is because you're working so hard, or it just kind of comes in around a bunch of other things and you don't realize what it is because it's kind of masked by different things.
Exactly. And that literally was this whole week for me. This whole last week was nothing but anxiety. This is like the only day I felt normal this week, which is
good.
It's been good. But so started opening up about that. And I mean, we still would have conversations, and this is up until like last December. You know, you need to find a better job. Like you know, is this what you really want to do? La la la. And I don't think my parents understood until they met my bosses.
Okay.
How amazing they are. That it really clicked for them. So you work for people and then you like work for people, and working for people is just not like, you know, going to work, getting paid, doing the thing, but not really getting, not having your cup
with
filled.
Your bosses or whatever.
Yeah. You don't leave with a full cup.
Yeah.
I work for people who, first of all, like, let me have as much of their baby as they do, because they trust me with their baby, you know, like, it's really cool getting to grow with them, and there's so much mentorship that comes with it. There's so much they've poured into us, and that in itself, I feel like my parents saw a huge change with. So after they met Brandon, they haven't met Megan yet, but they met Brandon, who's also a chiropractor. And so after they did that, it clicked. And so my mom's been going to see Brandon. She's been getting adjusted for like 4 months now. And for the last 4 months, it's finally clicked a little bit more. And so it kind of goes full circle, right? Like
it does.
Chiropractic's pretty holistic and natural. And she's been going and she sees the benefits that he's been like, you know, giving her and helping her with. And then you throw a little bit of cannabis in there. And so she's had some, actually,
like supplements,
prime example,
whatever,
So my parents actually got into a really, not a bad, but it was a pretty decent car accident. They're a lot older. My grandma's in her 90s. It was my dad.
This is a reoccurring theme, right?
Yeah. Oh boy.
Don't go in the car with Salah's parents.
Seriously. Actually, this was somebody else's fault, but this was back in March, and they got, this is back in March, and they got into a decent sized car accident, and my dad was in a lot of pain when we got home that night, and he didn't want to take, my dad's like me, and he's like, I don't want to take any medicine because I don't know what the side effects are. I don't know what's in it. And I'm like, yes, you are my dad. And so I was like, do you want a gummy? And so he was like, I'm in so much pain right now, like I will try anything. And so that was the first experience, and I was like, I'll do it with you. And so that was the first time I got to consume with my father, which is really cool. And not that it was anything crazy, but it was just the fact that he was open enough to want to try it. And then soon after came my mom, and my mom's first time wasn't great because she user error. That was on her. I always say that was your bad. Like, don't blame the plant, because she used cannabis on an empty stomach. And just like any medicine, you have to eat something before you consume.
Okay.
And so she didn't have a good experience, was having really bad anxiety. My dad and my grandma were making it worse. So she calls me freaking out, and I'm like, oh God. So I go home and like calm her down, whatever. Yeah. But pretty up until recently, they have patches which you can put on, which are really good for like for your body if you have any sort of body. So we've been dipping our toe in that, and that's been really good. And like topicals have been, you know, a thing. But now I think they see the passion that I have in the industry, and for the first time in my adulthood, and for the first time in my adulthood, I'm very confident in what I'm doing, and I will put my foot down and be like, no, you don't know. And I actually had a conversation with my sister the other day. She was like, hey, like, we were just talking about stuff, and she was like, so, like, you know, what's up with your career? Like, how's that going? And I told her, I was like, honestly, I finally found the industry I'm meant to be in. Like, I know that retail is not the sexiest, no, but I'm learning so much. I work for amazing people. We're in a time where jobs are so hard to find right now. The economy's down, and yet I work for people who pay me really well, always make sure I'm taken care of. I get to help people. I get to, you know, just, it's all the things that I want. And money's never been something that stimulates me or drives me. It's people and serving and giving. And if that's how my cup is filled, right? And so none of that was happening before with tech or anything like that. And so I even told her that. I was like, you know, I thought that was going to be my thing for a long time, and I chased it for so long. And then now I still love to do it, and it still ties in with what I'm doing, which is cool, but it's not my thing. Like, cannabis is my thing, and I am where I'm meant to be now, which is really cool.
And coming from like tech, it's like tech is known for being like a lonely, dark, kind of not a good mental space, right? Especially if you're in it a lot and you're in your room and you're building and you're doing coding or whatever. It's like, it's a lonely place and no human interaction. You might be interacting with people across the world via tech, but it's not that human interaction. And there's a lot of bad things out there about tech, and you know, there's mental issues and mental health. But when you come from that side and you understand what you do, and I'm sure you have, like I said, you have all your friends from Apple that help out and that understand the cannabis side of things now, and you're able to help those as well. Like, it's a really good mix.
It's honestly, it's really cool. So I have I'll have a lot of people just randomly hit me up and be like, hey Sab, like, it's really cool to see what you're doing, like, or, you know, they'll ask advice, or it's just really cool. It's just full circle, honestly. It's really, I love what I do. I'm so grateful to be able to do what I do. I'm grateful for the people I work with. It's dope.
That's awesome.
I love what I do.
So, I mean, you have a podcast called The Cannabis Hangout with you and Bran, and I mean, it's going really well. I know, you know, it's been awesome to bounce questions back and forth and talk about stuff like that. Where can people go to listen to that and get involved and learn more about, if they're listening and they're like, you know what, I think I may have anxiety, and they're open to trying some stuff?
Yeah, so we're on Spotify, we're on Google, and we're on Apple Podcasts, and you can actually listen to our podcast on our website as well. It's just The Cannabis Hangout, and you can follow us on Instagram. If you ever have questions, please feel free to ask. We're very... I mean, we love to educate, but we also love to be educated. So if you have something that you want to educate us on, like, hit us up. We're always open. It's been a really cool journey. I love being in the podcast game.
It's different being on the other side, though, isn't it?
It's so different being on the other side. This whole time, like, my palms are sweaty, and I'm like, wow, what's going to be the next question? Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming down. It's been awesome. I'm excited to kind of, you know, see everything grow from here, because I know that you're so passionate at it and you found your thing, which is really cool. I'm sure it's great to hear, like, in immigrant stories as well, like mum and dad's view of things. And I know, like, coming from, you know, my mum and dad on, I don't think they're as intense, but, like, they definitely ask the questions.
Always. The questions
are
always
the worst time ever.
Yes.
But yeah, I totally understand that. And I'm sure there's people listening that come from immigrant families that understand that as well. But yeah, thanks for coming down. And for everyone listening, we'll post all the links down below to the website, to your social media as well, so people can follow you and then ask you some advice. But it's been awesome. I'm excited.
Thank you, Mike. Let's everyone give a shout out to Mike Kearney for killing This Is Oklahoma.
Trying. We're trying to get a podcast van for next year, but we'll see.
Hell yeah, yo, dual
all
vans.
About the van life.
All about the van life. Yes,
we can do a whole podcast on that.
Oh yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, thanks for everyone listening. I'll post all the links down below, and yeah, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.